Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's lesson, we're continuing with multiplication, but we're going to learn a new strategy. It's called partial products, and it's lesson 2-7. So our goal is, today I will multiply using partial products. Our vocab is going to be the same as it was in our last lesson, that we just need to know that the two numbers that are being multiplied together are called factors, and the answer is called our product. Now, just like we had in our area model lesson, partial just means part of, or we could say part of the whole. So in this lesson, we're going to be finding the answer in parts. So we'll have partial products, part of the product, and then we'll be adding them together. Okay, our notes tonight are just that we're going to really need to remember how you did that expanded form in 4th grade. So 48 would look like 40 plus 8. Okay, 326, this 3's value is 300. The 2's value is 20, and the 6's value is 6. And for 819, the 8, its value is 800. The 1's value is actually 10, and the 9's value is really a 9. So understanding that, it's going to be really helpful to today's lesson. Okay, our steps today are pretty short. We're first going to write the longer factor on top of the smaller factor. And this is going to be the important part here. I'm going to put some stars by it. We want to be sure to line up the last place value and all the digits. When you're multiplying, it's very, very important that your numbers are always lined up and very neat. Okay, number 2 is we're going to multiply each digit from one factor with each digit from the other factor. Okay, that one sounds a little confusing, but when you see it happen, it'll make a little more sense. And then step 3 is we're going to add the partial products. Okay, so again, this is a lesson that you have not learned. So in 4th grade, you learned how to multiply using the area model. This is a whole new strategy. Okay, so our first problem looks like this. Okay, so my steps, remember, say first I'm going to write the longer factor on top of the smaller factor. I'm sorry, the shorter factor. Well, if I look at these, they're both 2 digits long, so there's really not a longer factor. So I'm just going to line them up as 54 times 28. Now notice I have these very clear lines. They're very lined up. That's going to be really important. Okay, next, my next step is the big one. It says I'm going to multiply each digit from one factor to each digit to the other factor. So if you look at this factor, it has 2 digits. So I'm going to multiply each digit to those digits. Okay, so let's see what this actually looks like. Okay, so I'm always going to start right here when I multiply. You always start in the bottom right-hand corner. Okay, so I have 8, and this value is actually 8 because it's in a ones place. And I'm going to multiply it by the 4. So I'm going to go 8 times 4. Well, 8 times 4 is 32. And that was 8 times 4 gave me the 32. Okay, so I did the 8 times the 4. Now I need to do the 8 times the 5 because I need to do each digit to each of their digits. So 8 times 4 was 32. Now I'm going to do 8 times 5, but this is where it gets a little tricky. That's not really a 5. The value of that is not 5. The value is 50. So I really have 8 times 50. Well, if we think about how we did this before, in unit 1, remember 8 times 5 is 40, so plus 0 is 400. So 8 times 4 and then 8 times 50. Well, now I've used this digit to all of that digits. So I'm going to move to the next digit. Okay, now here's where it's tricky though. It looks like a 2, but if I think about it, that 2 is really worth 20 because it's 2 in the tens place. So I'm going to now move here, and I always go back to the beginning. So 20 times 4 is 80, because I did 2 times 4 is 8 and then added the 0. Okay, now I did the 2 to the 4, but I need the 2 to the 5. So I have 20, because remember my 2 is really worth a 20, times 5, but that's really worth a 50. So 2 times 5 is 10, and I have to add 2 extra zeros. So I'm going to have 3 zeros. Okay, that's what step 2 is. Now step 3 is we're going to add all these partial products. So I have 2, I have 11, carry my 1, I have 5 and 1. So my answer is 1,512. Okay, let's try another one of those. This one's going to be a little harder because if you notice now I have a 3-digit by a 2-digit. But I'm going to do my same steps. First, it says I'm going to write the longer factor. Well, this factor is longer because it has 3 digits. So I'm going to have 317 times 63. Okay. So step 2 is my hard step, my big work here. I always start right here. And remember, step 2 says I'm going to multiply each digit from one factor to each digit from the other. So I'm going to start here, 3, and this really is a 3 times a 7. So 3 times 7 gives me 21. Next, I'm going to go to the 1, because I start here and then I go to the next one. So 3 to the times the 1, but the 1's value is really a 10. So 3 times 10 is 30. Okay, so I went there, now I need to go here next. 3 times, okay, but this 3 is not a 3, it's really a 300. So 3 times 300 is 900. Okay, so now this 3, this digit, went to each one of that factor's digits. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, so now we have the 6. Okay, but let's think, the 6 is not really a 6 because it's in the tens place. It's really a 6D. And I always go back to the beginning. So 60 times 7, well, 6 times 7 is 42, and add a 0. Okay, so I went there, now I'm going to go here. 60 times 10 is going to give me 600. And now I have to go to my last one. 60 times 300. Wow, now we're getting really big ones. Is 18 plus 3 zeros. Wow. So 18 plus 1, 2, 3 zeros. Okay, I did my best to keep everything nice and lined up. So step 3 is I'm going to add all that. So I have 1, 2 plus 3 is 5, plus 2 is 7. Not carrying my 1, sorry. 9 plus 4 is 13, plus 6 is 19, or it might have been easier to say 4 plus 6 is 10, plus that's 19. Carry my 1. So I'm getting 19,971. Okay, so let's try some of those and see how you feel about them. Okay, grabbing your pencil. Sorry, just checking the camera there. Okay, ready. So we still have our steps. here's our first one. Okay, well, because there's not a longer one, they're both the same length, I'm just going to set mine up as 42 times 31. And remember, the last place values have to be lined up and all my digits need to be lined up. Okay, now we're on step 2. So now I'm going to be multiplying each factor towards the other factor. And I always start in the bottom right-hand corner. So that is worth 1, and I'm going to multiply it to 2, which will just give me 2. Okay, now I'm going to go to this digit, 1 times 4, but that 4 is really a 40. So I'm getting 40. Okay, now I use that digit. There's nowhere else to go, so I'm going to come on to this digit. And that's a 3, but it's really a, hopefully you thought it, 30. So 30 times, and we go back to the beginning, 2 equals 60. And then we have 30, now we have to go up here, times 4, but that's really a 40. So 3 times 4 is 12, and then I need to add my 2 zeros. Okay, step 3 is I'm going to add all of that, so I'm getting 2, 10, 1,302. Okay, let's try one more. And this one's going to be a little bit more difficult because it's a 3-digit by 2-digit. So step 1 says we're going to put the longer one on top. Okay, notice how we've lined up our digits really neatly. Okay, step 2, we're ready to go. So the 5 is where I always start. And it's really just worth a 5. So 5 times 1 gives me 5. 5 times 3, but it's really a 30, gives me 150. And 5 times 2, but it's really a 200. Ooh, that's going to be 10 plus 2 extra zeros. 10 plus 2 extra zeros. Okay, so now my 5's been used on all of them, so let's go on to our 2. Now remember, our 2's not a 2, it's really a 20. And I go back to the beginning. So 20 times 1 gives me 20. 20 times 3, which is really a 30, it's going to give me 2 times that is 6 and 2 zeros, a 600. And then 20 times 2, which is really a 200, is going to give me 4 plus 3 zeros. So 4 plus 3 zeros. Okay. And now we add all these, and hopefully you've kept your numbers pretty lined up. So I have 5. 5 plus 2 is 7. 1 plus 6 is 7, and 1 plus 4 is 5. 5,775. Okay, I know it looks like a lot of work. Hopefully it's not too difficult of work. You only have 2 problems, so even if it seems like a lot, I think you can do it. If you're running out of space because these took so long, you could kind of rearrange your paper or even get scratch paper if you needed to. And remember to rate yourselves. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen.